This is Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. When I think about the critical issues facing Black and Brown residents in the St. Louis area, I often ask the questions: how did we get here? What's holding us back? And how do we progress? At 9 PBS, we want to deepen our understanding and change the narrative. Join me as I look for answers and discover solutions on today's podcast. For some, the answer to reducing violence in the Black community is to hire more police officers and send more offenders to jail. For my next guest, the answer lies in part in her own experience with what we now call trauma and her role as an actress, singer, and now founder of an international anti-violence program called the UnGUN Institute.
Listen, St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center and the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation.
Welcome again to this episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. I'm your host, Carol Daniel. I am senior producer and host here at 9 PBS. Wow. My next guest, I call her friend. I call her sister. She will get me together in love at any moment. She is an activist. We will tell you what that means in just a moment. She is a woman on a mission. Dr. Marty Casey is founder of the UnGUN Institute. She is also founder and president of Show Me Arts Academy, created following the unrest in Ferguson. You are a lot of things, my friend. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Carol. You know, it's always a party when we get together. So I'm excited about being here. And congratulations. Congratulations on life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. To come to this point in my life is a blessing indeed. To have this chapter at 9 PBS, I couldn't have dreamed this, but it is a dream indeed. So before we talk about UnGUN Institute and you, and why you do what you do. When I said mission, I mean that. I do want to remind you all that we want you to subscribe and share this podcast. I always like to say, don't keep it to yourself. Don't be selfish. Go on and share this good word that you are about to get from Dr. Marty Casey on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. And one last thing, Marty, I actually ask people to leave me a comment, to let me know what they may have learned, what moved them by this conversation, because it is from those comments that we learn what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. So go on and subscribe, share, and leave me a comment, and I thank you for that. So, UnGUN Institute. We're going to talk about that in a moment, because it came to you in a way that we know it was meant to, and what it is doing. I will just tell people I have been ungunned. When we talk about trauma in this community, everybody has some level of trauma. Absolutely. So I can't wait to talk about that. But answer a core question that we have at Listen St. Louis, and that is, how did we get here? Where violence is far too pervasive, where some Black parents are teaching their children what to do when they hear gunfire. How did we get here, Marty?
Wow. You know, Carol, I think about what you're asking right now, probably every single day. I'm studying, if you will. So I can't say that I necessarily have the entire answer, but I would like to think that I can add something to it. One of the things that I recognize is that violence is not new. It's not new. When I take it back to personally where I began to pay attention to violence, my great-grandmother on my father's side was gunned down and stabbed to death in her home after a gentleman had broken out of the hospital, the psych ward, and then he was feeding his addiction. He was getting high on weed at that time, as we're talking about in the late 70s, and he broke into her home on Good Friday to steal a black and white television so he could sell it to support his addiction. At 8 years old, I'm thinking about, why would someone hurt an innocent elderly person? Why would that happen? I didn't understand that this is mental illness mixed in with the violence. The violence is sometimes perpetrated by a need And so this gentleman, being addicted, he didn't have any boundaries. He didn't care about anyone else's life. He had at that particular time nothing to lose but one goal to gain.
Right.
And so, is violence new? Is the way violence show up, is it new? It's not. I'm here to tell you that it is not. So the same things that I witnessed then, I still witness today. And what we call in UnGUN is trauma tracing. So when I traced that trauma, I traced it back to not just that gentleman, the violent act that he did to my great grandmother, but what was his why?
Right.
And he was already in an institution that he broke out of. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So how are we serving? This is where all these things connect. So we look at the laws. Are they too loose? We look at the accessibility of drugs on our streets. Is that too accessible? We look at the relationships that we have with one another. Are they too broken? Like, when do parents and families just throw their hands up to the individuals knowing that something is going on and they could commit a violent crime, but we walk away because we're tired?
Right. We're done.
We're
Yeah.
done. So if I trauma trace that, I can find a lot of things that's leading up to why violence today is where it is. And specifically in our city, we are a smaller city, but we have all the things a bigger city has. So we hear about it more. We see it more. We know the individuals, I think, a little bit more than if I was in New York, if you will, or Chicago. I'm probably one or two people away when I pick up the newspaper or hear it on social media.
You know somebody who
I know
knows
somebody that
who-
knows
yeah,
somebody. So it's then becomes so what? Very personal. It's in my face. I can't ignore it. So if I can't ignore it, the next best thing that I can do is what? Become numb to it. And that's what we're
That's
seeing.
where we are.
That's where we are.
And so when you talk about trauma tracing, and you listed just in that example, every step along that way, there was a failure as well. A failure of the individual, a failure of the family, and not
Systems.
and failure of systems, which means then we go all the way up to failure of policy, failure of policy makers, right?
That's good. That's good. How long we out here today? Because we are
We already in it. We already in it.
We in
Yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
good,
yeah.
Carol. That's exactly what I am saying. And so to answer your question, how did we get here? We've been here.
We just dig in a deeper hole.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we've ignored, or because you and I both know many elected officials.
Absolutely.
Most of them have the intention to solve problems, but then they are met with roadblocks and a web of policies and issues and
How we've always done it.
yes. Yeah.
You're coming with something new. How do you know it's going to work? How much is that going to cost? There's always some things that mixes in with the decision making in the end.
But
And that saddens me.
I have to ask you too. You said you were 8,
Yes.
so you experienced the trauma.
Yes.
And-
Because trauma is transferable, and so is healing. So that's where it began for me, right? And one of the things that I think is important to point out is that I wanted to go to my great grandmother's funeral, and my mother wanted to protect my psyche, and so she says, "No, you're too young to attend a funeral of a violent crime like this." So how many of us are exposing our children to these types of events that are happening where they are not mentally prepared to deal with it? I thank my mother every single day, although I remember wanting to go,
Right.
but my mother denied that of me. We are not necessarily denying our children of some of the things they're not prepared to see.
Do you think that it stilted your grief process, though, by not being able to say goodbye?
No, I don't, because right now I'm still telling the story.
Right.
So I never lost the relationship or the love that I had for my family member, right? But what it had, it really, what it did, it gave me a more laser focused way of looking at what was happening around me and making sure that this doesn't happen again. And I believe that that's one of the seeds that was planted early for me to do the work that I do today. And I can, I'm gonna have some more stories to tell you of how I've gotten to where we are with UnGUN, but that is like that early seeding for me.
We are focusing on the challenges, the hurdles, even the successes, because you are a success of African Americans in the St. Louis region. And when we talk about the trauma that Black people face, there's trauma everywhere. Why is the trauma different for us?
Well, trauma has no face, place, or race. Let's say that.
Right.
Okay?
First of all.
That's the bottom line. But traumas can show up differently in different cultures for different reasons. We have different experiences, different upbringings. We have
different resources. Or lack thereof.
Or, I was getting ready to say,
right.
And so I believe that, again, going back to that word trauma tracing, if we are tracing it, we may take a different route dealing with it, but the hurt and the pain is the same. It's the exact same. I will use the example that in some cultures they're dealing with the fentanyl problem, right? More so than in other cultures. And the bottom line is, a person that's addicted, the addictions are still going to show up the same. The choices of what they're being addicted to may look differently. So that's how I see the trauma piece of it. We are in our society, I can go through a neighborhood and I can tell if this neighborhood is lacking the resources versus going through another neighborhood and it looks like they are overflowing with resources. That's trauma within itself. I don't care what city I'm visiting. I don't have to know anything about that city. But when I go through a neighborhood and just by the conditions of the buildings, if there's a nearby grocery store, if I see more
liquor stores,
then I see malls or what, I can tell the conditions we have been conditioned to live in our trauma, where other cultures have been conditioned to build around their trauma. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Okay. What do you think is holding us back?
We're not connecting our dollars with one another. We're not investing in each other. I think it starts with our personal relationships. Carol, I'll use you and I for example. I believe part of my success, because you are one of my mentors, and you gave me a face and a place where I can tune in every single day and hear and see someone that looks like me, and you made me know that it's possible. Right? And here we are today, fast forward years later, we are friends, right?
Right.
And we support each other. You support me just as much now as I was supporting you before you even knew my name. That's that connection. We have to make those connections with one another. And yes, things are going to happen. We're not going to always agree. We definitely don't always have to fall out.
Right.
We don't. And so I think it really does start with the relationships and how we are investing in one another. Because if I invest in you, now we can think about what can we do together
and
to build something to now bring others into that space. We don't have our own hospitals. We don't have we're getting some educational institutions, but we don't have enough. And even if we're renting the building, we don't own the land.
So, for sure.
So it's very concerning to me that we don't have the core resources that it takes for us to be sustainable. And in order for us to start working on that, we have to start working on us.
And one thing that we want to do, not just with Listen St. Louis, this podcast, but 9PBS as a whole, as an organization, as a media entity in this region, is to change the narrative. We want to change the story that we tell ourselves. And so I will never forget when I first moved here and I was writing a column in the St. Louis American newspaper, Black Weekly, one of the top weekly newspapers of all newspapers in the country. I wrote a column for 10 years. And I remember asking someone about the Muni outdoor theater, largest outdoor theater in the country. And this person who happened to be black said to me, "Black people don't go to the Muni."
Ooh.
And I'm not from here. I did not grow up here, but I have lived here for almost 30 years. And I said, "Well, who says?" Because I went and I'm black. And so there is a story that we have told ourselves, and there's a story that's been told about us, some of which we believe. I would like to call those lies. So what is the narrative that we should change?
So I want to circle back around.
Yes,
I got to go
please
to
do.
that part with the Muni. My grandmother exposed my mother and her sister to the Muni at a young age. My mother then exposed me. I am an actress or activist, however you want to put that today, because of that exposure. My great-grandmother shared with me a story that when I performed my one-woman show where I placed 7 characters from my great-great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, my brother, my daughter, myself. When I do this story, I share where my great-grandmother said to me she was a background singer for her first husband, and he sang in the big bands, okay? And they had to go to the back door in order to even get inside of some of these venues like the Fox and the Symphony and or what have you. They could perform, however, they had to use the back door. And as soon as it was over with, they had to leave. And she said, no matter how much money we made or who we believe we were, there was not enough money to allow us to get in through the front door.
Wow.
My great-grandmother had never experienced entering in the front door until my name was on the marquee out front. And I remember sending a limo to pick up my mother, my great-grandmother, and my daughter, who's now in the business. See, these connections I'm telling you about and how we passed this down. And when my great-grandmother got there, the usher, volunteer ushers at the Fox,
Right.
She was a retired, beautiful white woman, looked at my great-grandmother's ticket and walked her to her seat. It happened to be the front row center. And the lady says, "Oh my goodness, you have the best seat in the house." And my great-grandmother said, and I turned to her and said, "I should. That's my great-granddaughter's name out there on that marquee." But it was the first time she had ever entered
In the front
door of the Fox Theater. So when we say we don't go there, sometimes it's because we've never seen someone that looked like us.
That's
before.
generational.
Yes, we have to tell the stories. That's what I love about you. You're such an amazing storyteller, Carol.
Thank you.
And you build platforms where we can also tell our stories. And I hope that today on PBS that they remember this story. We can't change what happened, right? We can only change how we feel about it. And so I could take that story that my great-grandmother told me as a negative, but instead I turned it into a positive. And I gave her an experience before she closed her eyes at 93 that she then could experience a positive. We turned that trauma into triumph.
I love that story too, in that she never stopped performing.
No, she didn't.
And she passed that on to you, clearly.
She's gospel singer. She sang at St. Paul AME in the gospel choir for well over 40-something years or what have you. Just amazing, just an amazing woman of the art. She could cook. She was, she just did I look just like her. That's where I get these big legs. All this roundness, it came from my great-grandmother, as they say, it reached way back.
All this roundness. If I could change the name of the podcast, it would be all this roundness.
I'm telling you.
So
yes.
what do you mean by activist? You've explained it to
Yes.
me before, but I would love everyone to get an understanding. It's a description that you coined.
Yes, I did. So I am a professional actress, and I am also an activist. And simply, I like to share that I became an actress so that I can express on stage, so that I could deal with my own childhood trauma. So becoming an actress is what I chose to do. Becoming an activist is what God called me to do so that I can help others ungun their trauma. So when I put the two together, because you can't get any of me without the, both sides have to come together. So I'm an activist is who I am. Part of what I want to do and what I've been called to do, but it's all so that we can live our best lives.
So Marty Casey, the little girl, was, I've read you described as short-tempered.
Ooh.
So that's another
Yeah.
reason we probably connect, because I had a short fuse.
Yes.
Is what if I thought you were going to hit me, I hit you first.
Yes. My temper was as short as my height. I'm only 5'1", so it only took 5.1 seconds for me to respond to hurt. Right. And I was just sharing the other night, we had a community conversation at a church, and I was sharing that I did what I saw. What are we showing our children? I didn't hear my father physically beating my mother. I didn't see it. I mean, I didn't see it. I heard it. I heard the hollers, the screams, I heard the chaos. He never struck my mother in front of me, but the effects were the same. They were the exact same. So I'm saying that to say, when someone else hurt me and I would get triggered by that same emotion that was rising in me when I could hear my parents fighting, my body just knew to react emotionally the same way it does when your mother and father's fighting. I prepared for war. And I responded in that way. I didn't have to get ready. I was already ready. So as soon as you did or said anything, we going there.
So we're talking middle school, high school. You're
Oh my
fighting all the
goodness.
time.
Middle school was my first physical fight with someone else outside of me and my brother fighting, right?
Yeah.
And I fought with him every day. So I really was prepared. Okay. So the bottom line was, in 8th grade, this young lady slapped me because we liked the same young man. He was talking to me, gave me too much attention that day during the movie time, and she smacked me. Well, I don't know what the movie was. No one does. We didn't watch that movie. We didn't. It ended abruptly. However, that was my first fight. Now, fast forward, here I am in high school. And I want to say this. I was at Riverview Gardens, and I think this is important for those who are listening, because we've been hearing some things in the news, you know, the fights that's been taking place in Riverview. I am at the school now, high school, and a teacher stepped on my hands. I was sitting, if you can imagine, I'm sitting down, legs crossed in gym, and my hands off to the side, Carl, because again, I'm round. And I just couldn't fold in and up like everybody else. I just couldn't.
So you're balancing yourself.
Right. My hands was off to the side, and she was taking attendance, and she stepped on my hand. I knew it was an accident, but I wanted to bring it to her attention because she did not apologize. So I said to her, you know, I don't want to call her name, but I said, "You just stepped on my hand, Mrs. So-and-so." And she intentionally got in my face, doubled back around, got in my face, bent down, and said that maybe your hands should have been in another place.
Oh, my.
And I stood up and I punched the teacher.
Oh, my goodness. Marty Casey.
I got expelled 90 days.
90 days?
90 days expelled.
It's a level 4 offense or something like that.
Well, let me tell you, right now, you're going straight to juvenile detention. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. And as you should, okay? However, I felt like I was within my rights because she stepped on my hand, you know, so I'm pointing this out because this is how trauma shows up, right? I didn't know how to express myself or what would be the next best thing to do other than hitting this teacher. So now my mother moves me across town from Castle Point to Webster Groves.
Oh, my.
I'm now at Webster Groves.
Culture shock.
Yeah, yes, more trauma. I wasn't there 30 days before another young lady did something to me, and emotionally it did something, and I had a fight with her. I ran home. The police was at my door.
Oh, my.
This is the good news. I was trying to communicate. I knew I was going to have problems with her. I had been talking to my counselor, and I said, I've already been put out of another school. I don't want to fight, but this young lady is doing things to me and antagonizing me, and I just need some help on how to handle this. I had documented conversations of trying to handle it in a different way. So this time I only got suspended for 3 days. That young lady got suspended for 10. The point that I'm making, my music teacher pulled me aside and said, Marty, you're gifted. Doors going to open for you, but as soon as they're open, they're going to close if you don't change what's going on the inside of you. Well, I didn't know what she was talking about. I'm trying to remember, what did I eat last night? What's going on the inside of me that she could see, I can't see? Well, she was talking about trauma, but that wasn't the word we were calling it back
At
then.
all, at
See,
all.
back then we would just say, "What's wrong with you?"
Right.
And we would say, "You're acting out, or you're acting bad, or you."
And we would
labeled
dismiss
it.
you.
We disconnected from you so
Right.
quickly. But she knew I had a talent. So she challenged me. She says, if you don't get in any trouble between now, which was in October, until February, which would have been Black History Month, I will allow you to sing any song you want for the Black History program, solo. I wanted to sing so bad, Carl, because I thought I was going to be the next Whitney Houston. It didn't turn out like that, but
But
I wanted to sing. And kids were doing and saying all types of things to me. And I found all types of ways to ignore them, to handle it differently, create a peace
had a
response.
goal.
I went high because I wanted to sing. And I made it. I said in my mind, okay, yeah, I'm going to come back to you, but it won't be in February.
You're
I'll
keeping
get
a
you,
list.
yeah.
I'll meet
I'll
you
see
in March.
I'll march up to you in March. But the moment that I got a chance to sing, I discovered the value of Marty.
Mm.
Everyone in that place stood to their feet, the teachers, the students, the parents. I mean,
What did you
I got to
sing?
stand in over. Lord, you don't have to move the mountains.
Mm.
Yes.
And that's a message.
That within itself. Yes. I still sing that song. I tell people, get a song in your heart. Get a song that speaks to your spirit. When no one else can hear the words or the music, sing to yourself so that you can be in that better place. Get everything in alignment. What's the song you're singing today? I'm going to ask the
That's good.
listeners, what are you singing today? What's in your spirit? So that song got me out of a lot of things, and it moved me to a place in that moment that helped me to find value inside of me. That was that inside work she was talking about. After that, no more fights. I became a leader. My principal had me to start a group. What was it? 40. Oh, I can't even think of it right now. But I want to share this real quick. Next week, Carl, Webster Groves is honoring me. I'm one of 5 that will be going on the Wall of Fame for the work that I've been doing in the community since I've graduated in 1989.
So whenever you hear this, it may have already happened, but Webster Groves, the city,
Webster Groves, the high school.
the high school is going to honor you.
Yes.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
I
I
have
went from class clown fighting to the Wall of Fame.
But I have to ask you, when did you then identify the trauma
So
and get help?
It did. Well, I knew then that was that thing, that inside work that she was talking about. I instantly felt differently. That's why UnGUNning uses the arts. That's why I infuse
Right.
the arts, taking you to, the imaginary stage and the music room and the paint studio. I do that in your mind, because if you can get the mind to go somewhere, it will connect to the spirit. And it starts with, it's a feel, think, do method is what
Feel, think, do.
Feel, think, do is the method, right? You feel it first in your heart, and then the heart tells the mind what to think, and then the mind tells the body what to do. Feel, think, do. Didn't have a name back then that was called trauma, but if we did, I wish my teacher would have said, and what you need to do, Marty, you got to connect to your feel, think, do.
I like it. So that brings us to UnGUN Institute. Why did you start it?
I started it because it was a need. There was a need there. You mentioned earlier our organization, 501c3, Show Me Arts Academy, after the unrest of Ferguson. That all was trauma. Everyone who witnessed and heard about what was happening in Ferguson, we all felt something, just as we do with the stories we continue to, unfortunately, become familiar with George Floyd's and all Oscar Grants or what have you. We feel something. It takes something from us on the inside. And so I knew that when the situation happened in Ferguson, they were going to be suffering on the inside with all of that hurt and pain. And what do you do with that? We got to get them to that feel, think, do method. And so I was able to raise enough money to take 20 special children across the country to Washington, D.C., New Jersey, and New York to sing and dance everywhere. Oh my gosh, these children are so amazing, who are now young adults now, mind you. They're like about like 24, 25 years old. But they were so amazing in their gifting. When the tour was over with, I remember hearing from my higher power to say to me, you did that with those gifted children, but what about the ones that's already fallen through the cracks? I challenge you now to take something inside of the walls, the juvenile detention center. So I needed to create something different from what I was doing with Show Me Arts Academy. I created a program called UnGUN. And I was able to go inside of the juvenile detention center in St. Louis, and I worked with 8 guys, young men. We taught them DJ engineering, dancing, which hip hop dancing and poetry. And I had them to really express their feelings and their stories of what they had been experiencing and what got them here and what did you learn from that and what can we do differently? Where's those traps and those triggers and how can we avoid that? And so I wanted to speak their language. I couldn't go in there and call it Show Me Arts Academy. They didn't care nothing about the arts, but I knew if I somehow infused the word gun in there, I could possibly get their attention. Every guy that wanted to join our program, but we could only have 8.
Oh.
These young men, they had backgrounds of theft, stealing cars, robbery, first degree, second degree murder. One of them was in there for 2 murders. One particular young man, he was so good. He is someone that I will always remember, Carl. I've actually even written about him in a book. But he had to go up for, it won't be parole. What is it? He had to go before the judge because he aged out, and now his crimes was taking him to the penitentiary.
Oh.
Okay.
He's going to be certified as an adult.
Yes. And so when I got there that day, they said he won't be able to perform this week because we had to take him out your program. I was like, oh no, why? He's doing so well, which he was. Oh my goodness. And they said, yeah, but when that happens, these are the rules we have to follow. I said, okay. And so they said, but we were hoping you can go upstairs to talk to him because he stopped eating and he's not talking. But he wrote a note and said the only person he's willing to talk to is Miss Marty. And I said, but I thought we could never go upstairs. They said, well, we're going to bend the rules this time. So we can bend the rules for this, right? But we couldn't bend the rules for this young man to still perform, which were, I knew we could move the needle and we would see the medicine working for him. So anyway, I went upstairs, and when I got there, he was sitting with his tray of food. He had not touched it, and he was sitting on his bunk and his head was down. He didn't speak when I came in. And I said, oh, so what they're saying is true. I said, you're not talking and you're not eating. I said, well, let me at least explain to you because I cannot diagnose. I'm not a medical doctor. So I said, but let me at least explain to you what I believe is happening. Your throat chakra is closing up on you, and you feel like something's stuck on the inside. We have to remove that so that you can safely begin to swallow again, and then that will open up your airwaves to be able to talk. I said, so we got to do that feel, think, do. I need you to right now feed your spirit. I need you to feel your spirit because this is what I need you to understand. I don't know what's going to happen to you. I don't know how much time you're going to get, if you get any at all. I don't know. But I do know the only thing that they can lock up on you is your body.
And that's a true statement.
You're the one that gets to decide if you lock up your mind or not. And the way to unlock your mind right now is to feed your spirit. Dr. Marty took a risk coming up here today because I believe in you. I love you enough, and I know you can do it. And if that's enough right now for you to eat, so you can tell your mind you can make it, no matter what they do tomorrow with your body, you're going to be okay. And I'm going to make sure that when you get out, I hope you remember my name because I'll never forget you. From this day forward, UnGUN will no longer be a program. It's going to be a business. And it's because of you, young man. And that's when I made UnGUN Institute a business from that young man who was facing a double murder.
Wow. Did he eat And do you stay in touch?
I didn't stay long enough to see if he ate, but when I got to the door, he said, "Thank you, Miss Marty."
So he spoke.
He spoke. He spoke.
And you were a nonprofit, but when you left there, you became a business.
Yes. Yes.
So how does UnGUN work? Because that we see how that worked, but how does it work? And you don't just work with those who are incarcerated.
No.
Right.
Oh, we work with everyone.
Everybody. Like I said,
yes.
me.
We do it on Zoom.
Where my camera? Me.
But that's the beauty in it, that everybody needs to be UnGUN, Carol. Can I just say that out loud? And
Right.
I'm not selling anything. I want everyone to know, if you have experienced any type of hurt or pain and it feels like it's stuck, that's what we call trauma bullets. We have been hit by some trauma bullets. Like, can we keep it real in life from when we were younger? Probably yesterday. So you might be working with a coworker that you love your job, but every time you come to work and you're just like, I just can't, I'm ready to quit. Well, that's a trauma bullet, right? That's what you're experiencing. You're being triggered every time. And so if you're feeling that, we can help you get unstuck. It's really just, we call it ungunning, but for someone else, they may say, we want to help you get unstuck. We want to peel the layers back. We want to get you to a place where you can get to the core of the problem. And we can do this so quick. It happens within 45 minutes. For me to help you get to that place where, look how long it was with him. I was only upstairs with him and was able to speak to that trauma bullet in his throat.
Mm-hmm.
Just by feeding his spirit. But he had to believe it so he could send that message to his mind to unlock, so that his body could do something different, now wanting to eat.
And the sense that I've had for a long time as a reporter, journalist, news anchor, reporting headlines, how many murders, how many carjackings, another crime, another crime, is I always felt there were people, because there are, behind these headlines. The victim, the perpetrator, there are people and there are families. And we are now connecting trauma to
The violence.
To the story. How did this person get to this point? And if we can stop that, we can heal not only that person, but we can stop this from happening in the future. Do you have a sense that we are in a better moment than ever before?
Yes, we're moving in the right direction. But if I can just be so transparent,
Yes, because you can't help it.
Well, the only concern that I have right now is that sometimes people jump on the bandwagon when they start to hear certain buzzwords, healing and trauma and violence and gun violence, whatever the case. And because then what happens is that there's money that's being released, and they're following the money. Well, now we're no longer just serving pizza. We're going to now, you know what I'm saying? We're doing tacos too. And it's like, I thought, but you got a whole sign that say you a pizza place. But because that's what we do. We go with what we think is popular. And so what bothers me sometimes is that I hope that those who are really doing the work have been called to do the work. And you're not just jumping into a space, because we really need the work to be done. I don't want to just see people and organizations creating something to get on the bandwagon to follow the bag. I really want you to step in this space to do the work. I'm a healer. If you really want to know who I am underneath it all, I'm a healer. And that's a gift that was given to me by God. I didn't go to school for this. I'm a healer.
Can UnGUN help anyone, truly?
Anyone. No, trauma has what? No face,
Right.
no place, no race.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. So we can help anyone. And guess what? We don't even have to be in person with you. We do most of our work on Zoom. We're global. Like, I help people in other countries and other states. And I've received the Lifetime Achievement Award from President Biden for the work that we're doing with UnGUN. And I'm the first to win the bid here in St. Louis with a school district here where we're servicing 13 schools. I was the first with an anti-gun violence program in the schools. And so we're excited about what we have been able to do. We have that proven track record, right? We have measurable outcomes. We have to have it working inside of the district. We have
For
to have
sure,
that.
for sure.
So what we do works, and I'm excited that I was chosen and being that I have been gifted an opportunity to help, because hurt people hurt people, healed people heal people. I heard that hurt people when I was younger. But on the flip side of the coin, it was blank. Well, then what happens? So I had to add that other part. Healed people heal people, and we do. I am here on this earth. I know without a shadow of a doubt, my purpose is to heal.
How did you become international?
Oh, wow. That's good. Let me see.
There were connections made, as I
Well,
recall.
yeah, it was a whole lot of connections made. And it looked like it all came together. Like I'll say since like 2016 is when I became a global ambassador, peace ambassador. And so I am connected to over 95 global organizations that, yeah. So I mean, I don't, Carol, sometimes my mind is blown when I look back and see like,
How did that happen?
I'm still that
Mm-hmm.
same girl
Mm-hmm.
at Castle Point. I'm that same girl that had issues. And imagine if they suspended me out of my purpose. Imagine that.
Right. How
It-
many people you would not have touched?
Right.
You focus on Black boys.
I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why?
I do. Because I feel like our Black boys are required to do so much more than most. They have to prove themselves to me 3-4 times more than most. But they are also the least, 3 or 4 times least to receive the help. That's probably a whole nother podcast
Yeah.
that we could do. But I'm going to just give an example. There is a family where a community partner reached out to me and said that there's a family, Dr. Marty, that they just locked the young man up. The young lady has 3 young babies, a 1-year-old and a set of twins that are 3 months old. They just locked him up. She has no place to go. I need your help to help me try to place her. Now, I jumped right in. We did what we could do to disarm that trauma, because that's what we're all about. And we were able to assist. When he got out of jail, it was more important for me to go and see him, to ask him, first of all, how are you doing? And what can I do to help you? He could not believe that I was not attacking him or angry with him or, coming that way. And he almost was skeptical, like, well, why are you asking
Right. Why are you
me?
helping me?
Why are you trying to help me? And I said to him that your position is to oversee this young lady and your family. If I don't start with you,
Right.
the way you show up will bring harm to her, and it then will affect the children. This is how the trauma is moving. It's from you to her to them. So in order for me to help these little babies,
I have to help you.
I got to come help you first. I took him shopping to get clothes, food, gas in the car. We helped them to get their first apartment, their keys, along with other great community partners out there. So I just want to say it's a community effort. So when we talk about the work that we do globally, Carol, it's really about helping to build that world that's inclusive of all of us. I'm just one puzzle piece to this whole big 5,000 piece puzzle we're putting together. But I need to connect those other pieces so that we can completely connect the puzzle, right? And that's what we were able to do. And we did that in less than 1 week. They went from him being locked up to her being homeless to now the whole family is inside of an apartment with food and shelter and safety and love.
And that's how you change, generationally change.
Yes.
Talk to me about what you think has changed for the better or not since Michael Brown was killed. We are 10 years, almost 10 years out now.
Wow, I bring this up often as well. Thank you for asking that, Carl. I can't wait to tune into your podcast in about 6 more months from now. I know you're going to be following that track record. One of the ways that we have changed is that I think we are a little bit more aware of who the players are in our city, who's doing something. We know, we know the faces, and we come to know the names. That's good. I think we were really working in a very we were silos. We were in silos. We were working individually, doing good work individually, but still didn't know how to connect the dots. I think we're doing more of that, at least talking about it. But again, I have to say my biggest concern is that we're temporary in how we're showing up. Some of those same organizations, and I don't trust my word. I want everyone to do this homework for themselves. Go back 9.5 years ago when Ferguson first happened, and all of these organizations that came out saying they're going to be doing this and doing that, and who was over those organizations? Who was the CEOs, CFOs, and those individuals in place? I want you to now go back and see if those organizations are still in place, because Show Me Arts Academy is. I'm still the president, and I've created more things, right? And I'm not saying that for me to get a compliment. I just want to give you some framework. But I'll go back and see those individuals have changed. They've changed jobs. Those organizations may not even be functioning anymore. And the reason I want you to see that is because, again, I'm big on following the money. There was a lot of money that was misallocated, flat out stolen, lied about. And we said we were going to do this and do that, and we didn't. We didn't do those things. And so I still see a lot of stuff happening, and it looks good on paper, and it sounds good in the room with a mic. But when I go in the community, in the streets, I don't see it.
I'm going to need some names.
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you. You can ask me anything.
Because we do want to know, where are we 10 years later, and what's happened.
Challenge these people that you've written checks to. What I love about PBS has been the same from the beginning to the end. We all grew up with PBS. We all grew up watching these wonderful programs on PBS. PBS is the channel that I tune in for to see concerts that I may not ever get an opportunity to witness those individuals behind, but I get a chance to tune in and say, my money will come to PBS anytime, because they do what they say they're going to do. If those organizations that I'm talking about, if they are not moving like PBS, we got a problem.
And there are, in the streets, you're being told there are some problems.
PBS, problems, blacks, streets. We go. We go. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Another name for the podcast.
Yes.
Do you plan to recognize the anniversary in any way?
Absolutely. I am working on a documentary so that you can follow my work. The same thing I'm asking you to do with others. I want you to be able to see the work that we have done, because I don't do this work alone. I may be the only one sitting in the chair right now talking to you, but really behind the scenes of Dr. Marty Casey, I have some of the most dedicated key people. Renee Cunningham, I have to name her because she's in the studio for one right now with me, but she changed my life. She changed my mindset of how I have been able to fuel up. Because we go gas up everybody else, Carol, but who fuels us up?
That's a good one.
Right?
Who
fuels us up? That's my gas station. Like, she is that one that pours into me and makes sure that I am okay, so I can still show up and make sure others are okay. We have to have someone like that by our side. I have several beautiful coaches, Tamika Johnson and Latina Berryhill. I mean, I have some wonderful. I have a young man I just brought to my team. His name is Myron. He did 7 years. 7 years incarcerated. But he said he had to keep his mind on his son. He wanted to get back out for his son, and he will never go back in because of his son. And I make him hold that promise. So anybody that wants to do something differently. You want to be better, live your best life. We call that living in the green. We have a whole system that's called living in the green. Living in the green is living your best life. You want to tap into your purpose. You want to be able to feel something different from the inside, like my teacher told me. You need to come and contact us at UnGUN Institute so we can show you how to do that.
So last question for you,
Sure.
and that is another core question of this podcast. What must we do to progress and to heal? And I add heal because you're here.
That's good. Okay, so the four core areas that UnGUN is built on is give, forgive, heal, live. You can't do that out of order. You want to live your best life, you have to start with giving something first. What are you giving? What are you sacrificing? Are you giving yourself grace? Are you giving others grace? Right? What does that look like in your life, in your everyday, in your walk right now? What are you holding on to where you just can't let it go? You have to start with giving. And if we're talking about dollars, if you're giving money, also take some accountability. Follow and make sure that what you gave to that organization, they are doing the work. Make some phone calls. Ask to see the books. Ask to talk to someone. Ask to volunteer. Get on the inside and see it for yourself. I don't want anyone giving anything to UnGUN Institute if you don't see me showing up doing what I said I'm going to do. I don't want $1. The next thing is forgive. We hold on to all of those things that stay with us on the inside, like food. Can you imagine you've eaten something years ago and it's still inside of you? Can you imagine how rotten that is and what that would make you feel like, how sick you would be? Well, that's exactly what it is. Every time we take in the relationships one between each other, between the other, and we're holding on to the bad stuff, we're not releasing and letting that go. It's making us sick. And hurt people do hurt people. So forgive yourself for holding on, and then forgive others for doing something to you, intentionally and unintentionally. Let it go. It's not your fight. We got to learn how to fight differently, right?
Right.
The next part is healing. When you do those first two things, automatically your mind, body, and spirit will begin to be in alignment with one another. I call them your inner team. Your inner team is no longer fighting against each other, but they're fighting as a team. You're now winning. So if you're winning, you're now healing. And you cannot heal from something you're not willing to deal with. You have to be honest about how you feel about that situation in order to heal from it. You can't feel it, you're not going to heal it.
Right.
The last and final is live your best life, like Carol Daniel did. Carol said, I'm retired.
I'm retired.
And then I'm coming here building what I want to build and do it the way that I want to do it. I want to do what I want to do. I want to leave a legacy for my sons and my future grandchildren. That's living your best life. That's living in the green.
All right. It is give, forgive, heal, and live. I love that. Thank you, Marty K. Casey, Dr. Marty K. Casey, who is the founder and president of the UnGUN Institute. They can find you where?
They can find us at unguninstitute.com. I'm all over social media. You can Google, and you can also reach us directly at 314-518-5508. That's 314-518-5508. We're waiting to hear from you.
Thank you for joining me on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.
Thank you, friend, and congratulations again.
And thank you for joining us on another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. Don't forget to subscribe and to share and to leave me a comment. I know something moved you, and I'd love to hear it. We'll see you next time on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel.
Listen, St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center and the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation.